Hello, everyone. This is spiritual teacher and intuitive healer Matthew John here, and I'm so excited to be joined once again on my YouTube channel by the wonderful Ken Swartz, who is the chief scientist at C60 Purple Power. And we are going to have a really awesome, wonderful, in-depth scientific discussion on C60 and also a real practical discussion on C60, how it can help you, how it can maybe help your family, even your pets. So I'm so excited to welcome back Ken Swartz. Thank you for joining me once again, Ken.
Oh, glad to be back on.
Wonderful. So we had a talk like this about a year ago, and we have a whole new audience now tuning in. So we're going to go over again just the basics of this magical thing called C60. You know, I'll say right off the bat, I take 2 tablespoons of this stuff a day. I know that's more than the recommended dose, but I just love this stuff so much. It's done wonders for me. I'm always going and getting so much done, and I do attribute some of that to the C60. My family takes it, my pets take it. All the clients that listen to me end up taking it. So I'm a huge proponent of C60. And if you don't have time to watch the whole video, there is a coupon code to save 10% on your next order of C60. Go to the description box below to get that coupon code. Okay, you want to save that 10%. So without further ado, Ken, why don't we just start with the basics? What is C60? What is carbon 60? Still it's relatively new out there in the alternative healing communities, in the alternative medical communities. Most people still don't know what carbon 60 is. So let's just go over the basics.
Well, carbon 60 is a molecule, a 60 carbon atom shaped like a little soccer ball. If you kind of see the screen, it's right behind me. And one of my people just made a little presentation for me to do.
Wonderful.
And we're going to try to do this.
Can we pull that up? That actually might be a good idea.
Screen share.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here's our little slideshow that they just made for me. I've seen it once. And and the company is C60 Purple Power. The reason we call it Purple Power is because when you dissolve C60 in a clear liquid like MCT coconut oil, it turns it purple. So
okay.
That's the end of the whole thing. Following statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administrations. These products are intended to diagnose, treat, cure, prevent any disease. Individual results may vary. We have to say that.
Yep.
And it's the C60 is an antioxidant.
Okay.
And why do you need antioxidants? Well, it's basically because you have oxidative stress or free radicals, and basically it's what free radical is your body rusting. So what does that mean? It means like when you have oxidative radicals, they can do things like they can damage your cell membranes. So things leak out that shouldn't, or things leak in that shouldn't. That's bad. They can cross-link proteins. A lot of proteins have to fold up like origami, to do their job. And if you get a cross-link with an oxidative radical in there, they can't fold properly, can't do their job. And of course, they can damage DNA and RNA, which is the blueprints of your cell.
Right.
So, and that's what oxidative stress is. And they call it free radicals. And basically, it's just like a loose electron. And electrons and molecules, they like to have like full shells and be balanced. Well, basically, when you got a free radical, it's not balanced. So it goes out and starts tearing things off of other molecules. Okay. To get that balance, and of course, that's the damage.
Now, before we go on, what creates oxidative stress? So the oxidative stress creates the free radicals. Is that the progression?
Yes, exactly. And there's a whole bunch. Like for instance, 65% of the oxidative radicals in your cells are usually made by your mitochondria. And they're those little organelles in your cell. They make ATP, which is the energy molecule for your cell. Right. 95% of energy, your cell comes from ATP, but they're little furnaces. So they throw off oxidative radicals like superoxide. That's the worst one. It's like an oxygen with an extra electron. So if you were thinking about things rusting, superoxide is going to do it. And then there's the hydroxyl ion, and that's like a water molecule missing its proton. So it's got a free electron out there ready to rip something. And then there's a whole bunch of different oxidative radicals. Now, some of them are your body needs, like nitrous oxides. And that's a vasodilator. That makes your capillaries contract or expand, and that's really important. And then there's hydrogen peroxide, which really technically isn't an oxidative radical, it's an oxidizer, but your body uses it as a signaling molecule. And then there's some based around sulfur, iron, and zinc. And the key thing about C60, it doesn't interfere with any of those oxidative radicals. It's with the ones that body used by chemical processing. So it only deals with superoxide, which is the most damaging oxidative radical in the body, and the hydroxyl ion, which is the second most damaging oxidative radical in the body. And the body doesn't use those as signaling molecules. So it won't interfere with those nitrogen oxides or the hydrogen peroxide. And so that's kind of what we're talking here. I'm not keeping up on it. And, a lot of the things they talk about, like you've heard about antioxidants, I'm sure, vitamin E, vitamin C, D.
Yeah.
Those are really important because they're not just antioxidants, they're also building blocks for a lot of chemical processes.
Right.
But one of the things is, they've tried to do athletic performance by taking lots of vitamin C or vitamin E, and it actually doesn't help because eventually if you take too much, then it starts interfering with the signaling molecules. And then it just lowers athletic performance. C60 doesn't interfere with signaling molecules, so it's literally the only antioxidant you can take which increases athletic performance.
Wow.
And, so because a lot of these vitamins are kind of like have their Goldilocks situation where if not enough is bad, too much is bad. You got to find the right amount, and so but you don't have that problem with C60. And then what is oxidative radicals? What do they cause? Well, in your brain, the plaques that people get, like, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all that kind. You get heart attack, high blood pressure, arteriosclerosis. Actually, arteriosclerosis is caused by LDL cholesterol, generally, that oxidizes in your body and then sticks to the arteries, and then that causes inflammation, which causes plaques, which go on there. Obviously, kidney disease. These little. Basically, it's your body rusting. So you can see skin, acne, psoriasis. Of course, some of that has to do with a little bit of viral action going on there too. And you have all different things. Obviously, arthritis, that's an inflammatory disease. You've got all kinds of autoimmune systems, and most of those tend to hang out, especially in the gut. When the gut isn't working right, it's what they call leaky gut or inflamed. Basically, things leak into your bloodstream. That causes then the body says, oh, we have an infection. They send in the neutrophils and the macrophages, and that they got cytokines, which cause, so it just kind of grows.
Yeah. Ken, I certainly know what leaky gut's all about from my own experience, and so many clients of mine, leaky gut is a problem, and also arthritis as well. I have a lot of clients that have suffered for, a lot of times decades with arthritis. So this is great for them to see here.
Yeah, and then there's macular degeneration, and that's actually where I started my thing. Let me see if they have that. Okay, I don't know if they put that in there. Anyway, macular degeneration. I was working in a fusion reactor project. Right. A lot of the scientists who worked on that same type of fusion, the late doctor this, the late doctor that. And so I went out looking for something to fix that. And I discovered this stuff called carbon 60, C60 for short. And basically, they gave one set of rats got C60, the other didn't. That's the control group. They hit them with a multiple fatal dose of radiation. Pretty much all the C60 rats lived, whereas the control rats, died rather quickly.
Wow.
And so I got that for myself and my crew, since I'm responsible for their health, and we're all still around. So it worked. But I kept taking it even after the experiment because it gave me, a little bit more energy. The blahs, after you eat lunch, you get that thing about, 1:30 or something. If you want to take a nap, that kind of went away. And so I just kept taking it. And then about 7 months after starting C60, I went into my eye doctors, and my DRUs, or dry macular degeneration, had disappeared.
Wow.
And, we'll probably get more into how that happened, but that's kind of my thing. And then I started making it. I had a friend, Gary Rodriguez. He was our electrical engineer on the project, and he had by that time had severe wet macular degeneration. And we used to be able to post his before and after pictures, but that's making claims, so we can't do that anymore. But he had all kinds of heinous lesions inside of his eyeball. And after a year of taking C60 and MCT oil, his wet macular degeneration disappeared, along with his type 2 diabetes. Which is the cause of it. Rodriguez, that type 2 diabetes kind of hangs out there. So it's still, he still has to watch his blood pressure, do the diet and all that. It just dropped subclinical. And so, when your body's rusting, what are the things you're going to see? Like depression. And depression is a lot caused by dopamine suppression. There's a whole process where inflammation causes dopamine suppression. And also things like anxiety, it's just something's not right, brain fog. It's because your brain's not working right. So
You know,
So
it's
that,
interesting you said dopamine. I don't know if you saw, you know, it was a big splash in the especially the alternative medical community a couple months ago, that one study that showed that, well, for years everyone has thought that depression is caused by low serotonin, and that how SSRIs help is by boosting serotonin levels, and that in fact is not actually true. And actually now neuroscientists don't actually know why
yeah.
depression
Yeah,
is
because it's
caused.
dopamine. Yeah, because dopamine is kind of like your motivation molecule that
Right.
gets you up in the bed, out of the bed in the morning.
Yeah.
And like there's two types of inflammation. You have acute inflammation. That's when you twist your ankle, right? Or get a broken bone or something, right? And besides, you get the swelling, the redness, the pain, so you stay off that ankle. But there's also something that to do that there's a dopamine suppression. And the neurotransmitter dopamine is suppressed. So, and that's the motivation molecule. So you just don't feel any energy. You don't have any desire to get up and walk around on that injured ankle. And that's great when it's acute inflammation, because that's letting your body heal and get better.
Right.
Problem is when you have chronic inflammation, then you're just tired all the time. You don't seem to have the motivation. And C60 gets rid of that. That
And
helps get rid of that chronic inflammation. The dopamine levels rise and people get motivation again.
now, is there any link that you know of between reducing oxidative burden and raising serotonin? Because despite that study, we still do know serotonin is the happy chemical. It is, when you sit out in the sun, and your body's producing vitamin D, and you're feeling that, oh, this feels so nice, I feel content. That is serotonin.
Yeah, well, 70% of the serotonin is usually made in the gut.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got inflammation
That's
in the
good to
gut, you're
remember.
not going
That's
to be
right.
getting your
That's right.
and yeah, and so and gut, yeah, and depression and other it's problems that people have are so much linked to gut health. It's just amazing. It's the amount of what goes on there. And I'll just so but all of this stuff, it's just your body rusting, right? Things are being damaged. That's why you get fatigue. That's part of that dopamine suppression and other things. If your body's busy trying to fight off a problem, you just don't have energy. And then mitochondria issues, I'll talk more about that, because that's actually the secret of C60, is it restores mitochondria function. And you get vision loss, which, like what I had, memory loss, chronic illness. It's just caused by all this this oxidative stress, which causes inflammation. And the inflammation basically produces a lot of free radicals. There's sometimes, there's when you get inflammation, the chronic inflammation, it kind of sets off your body's immune system, and they have these things called macrophage A, and they're kind of like the emergency crew. They show up on the site, they release cytokines, which then bring in things like neutrophils, and neutrophils are like they're out there to get the bacteria, but if there's no bacteria, they just shoot off little superoxides, the one I mentioned, and then that causes a bunch of damage, which causes more inflammation, which causes more cytokines, which causes it's a vicious cycle. And you
Now,
really don't.
how about the link between chronic inflammation and autoimmune
Oh, it's
disease?
huge.
Because so many of my clients, so many people watching have been diagnosed with a lot of times multiple autoimmune illness.
Oh yeah, and that's what it is. And so sometimes, like your autoimmune, it's like your gut problem. It's not your gut that's a problem. It's your gut's leaky, right? It's letting food
Right.
particles, bacteria, toxins in, and so your body attacks those things, and it's thinking the gut's doing it, but the gut is doing it because it's not working right, but it's not the gut itself, so it gets punished. And a lot of times there's organs and tissues in your body that have an underlying infection or something,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
another
Could be
inflammation that your body.
viral, could be like an old virus, for example, right?
Yeah. And it just starts off and all that kind of stuff. And I'll get into some of the things that C60 does, but one of the things I'll just mention now is C60 moderates the release of histamines from mast cells.
Mm-hmm.
And for allergies, histamines are the things that cause the inflammation there. And so that's what it does.
Right.
So
when people take Benadryl, for example, that's a histamine blocker, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Right.
Yeah, and so C60 it moderates it, so it comes out correctly. And then they took that to animal studies. That was a human study. They used human cells in the test tube, human mast cells, and that's called in vitro. And then they did the test, and then they took that to an animal study, and they found that like the animals that got the C60, when exposed to an allergen that they are sensitized to, they didn't go into anaphylactic shock, whereas the control animals did. So
wow,
that's kind of the benefit.
Fantastic.
And when we get to it, chronic inflammatory diseases are the most significant cause of death in the world. And the World Health Organization, not that we particularly like those guys for some reasons, ranks chronic disease as the greatest threat to human health. And of course, a lot of this is actually due to the success of the medical system. You know, most people used to die of infectious diseases and other things before. But since the medical system has gotten rid of infectious diseases for a whole bunch of reasons and better sanitation, people are living longer. And now we have other problems, which is, you know, chronic inflammatory disease, which is usually associated with aging. And then aging is usually associated with the reduction in antioxidants, because our body makes a lot of natural antioxidants to fight these oxidative radicals. Because you remember when you were young, right? You never really had those problems. You know, everything worked great. Well, as we get older, the antioxidant levels go down. Our body just produces less, like a lot of things. So since the population in the world is much older than it's ever been, we get these chronic diseases associated with inflammatory conditions.
Yeah, and although the population's as old as it's ever been, the toxicity of the world, I think it's pretty clear, is worse than it's ever been from the air, right? With free, things like 5G, for example, from the water, right?
There's 40,000 industrial chemicals that are out there, and almost all of them have not been tested, right? And we got the glyphosate in the grains,
and a lot of it. One of the things that's most maddening to me is a lot of it is actually illegal in the European Union.
Oh, it is.
Yet okay here for some reason.
Yeah, like in Japan or China. Yeah, a lot of those places, they don't even allow it, right?
Right.
But here in the US, they get away with almost anything. And we could go on to a political discussion, but that would raise blood pressure there for sure. These are all the diseases that chronic inflammation causes, which are also tend to be associated with aging, you know, arterial sclerosis, stroke, and that's with heart disease. And, you know, that's also, you know, heart pressure, which also chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. That's the same thing, blood pressure, autoimmune, cancer. A lot of cancer is linked to that. Alzheimer's, fibromyalgia. We're still trying to figure that one out. Arthritis, obviously that's inflammation of the joints, asthma. And that's actually, that can be youth, and erectile dysfunction. Tends to do with blood pressure, because you get too much inflammation in your arterial system that raises blood pressure, and then a lot of things don't work. And then we got the irritable bowel syndrome, you know, just a whole variety of these things. We could just go on and on. So, and how do we fight free radicals? Well, we can neutralize them. And how do you neutralize them? Well, a little help from the heroes of anti-aging, which are antioxidants, which get rid of oxidative radicals. They neutralize them. And I mentioned before, the body makes it. And so vitamin C, vitamin E, the body makes also some antioxidants. The big ones, they're called endogenous, that the body makes itself, and you can't really supplement for them, but fortunately we can. And the big four there are CoQ10. Okay, you can supplement for that, and you should. Another one is glutathione. Now, glutathione was a hard time supplementing for, but they've got some good liposomals, which are like little packages of fats that are good for the digestive system.
I tend to oscillate between taking liposomal glutathione and N-acetylcysteine, and depending on what, you know, for what someone's got going on, you know, they might look for one or the other.
And who do you get your liposomal from?
Boardroom Organics.
Okay, well, there is a good one to get it from there. Yeah, so if you found good, that's something you should supplement for. But then there's some others you can't do anything about, and that was SOD, which is superoxide dismutase, and that takes care of superoxide, and they actually work together with catalase to get rid of the superoxide. SOD turns superoxide into hydrogen peroxide. Catalase turns hydrogen peroxide into water and oxygen. And whereas the molecule behind me, C60, is an SOD mimic. So it does the job of SOD and catalase in one stop to neutralize oxidative radicals. And I'll probably get a little bit more onto that as we go in. And here is the same thing. You know, as the body doesn't have, you know, as you get older, the body doesn't produce as much antioxidants. And your diet's important too. By the way, one thing, C60 is not a magic pill.
Of course,
so if you're not doing good nutrition, healthy lifestyle choices, enough sleep, you know, staying away from toxic situations.
Yeah, eating organic, if possible, it's really important to stay away from pesticides as much as possible, right?
Yeah, exactly. They found that eating organic fruits and vegetables reduced by 90% the burden of pesticides and herbicides and other things like that. Found in just 2 weeks, right? So you need to do all these things. And so it's not a magic pill, but it's a really good tool in the toolbox for better health.
Yep.
So as these go on, and then a lot of people say, you may be thinking I'm getting all the oxidants I need from food, but did you know there are some antioxidants your body has to make that you can't get from food? And that's like SOD, catalase, glutathione. Well, glutathione can make it, but it has to assemble it, right? You can't get the whole thing, like some of the lutins, I think, that go in. And and we can supplement for CoQ10. So that's just, and that's really not found in food. A little bit.
Ubiquinol. Would you agree for people, ubiquinol is an even better form of CoQ10?
Yes, I think so. It would be better. I'm not a medical doctor, really. So,
of course, yeah, of
but
course.
yeah, but ubiquinol, yeah, it's a little easier to,
yeah,
I guess, integrate into biochemistry.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but any of those types are good. And CoQ10 is an excellent thing for high blood pressure, by the way. It's one of the best things you can do. And the reason is, it's just because we're getting older. Old blood pressure is associated with age. And
right.
the antioxidants our body produce are going down. So there's not enough of them, and then the problems come with it, and all the other things like arthritis.
And just while we're on that topic, people can look into also olive leaf as an herb for high blood pressure. Yes, of course, check with your doctor, especially if you're on any medication. You should not take olive leaf with high blood pressure medication because it can really make it too low. But olive leaf is an amazing herb that a lot of people have been able to just take care of the problem.
Yeah. So that's, and nature provides a lot of benefits. It's
nature provides really almost, in my view of health, almost everything that we need. It doesn't, and people sometimes misconstrue, they think, oh, well, if nature has everything, then all I have to do is eat fruits and vegetables. Not necessarily true, because the game is not fair. The game is rigged because there's so many toxins that we're constantly exposed to from the water, from the soil, and from the air, and through frequencies all the time. So because of that, we have to fight with a little bit more than just organic fruits and vegetables, but supplements and herbs and homeopathy are made from nature.
Yes, and that's also too. And also, generally a lot of times people need to take like mineral supplementation for micronutrients, because a lot of our modern agricultural practices mine the soil. So you're not getting like the manganese or the chromium or the copper. Zinc, all these little tiny things. You need just a little bit, but you need it for certain things to happen. And so, and then the other thing they mentioned here in the thing is antioxidant production declines as you age. So, as we know, probably the people listening to this already know that. So that's, and then a secret hack for fighting oxidative stress at the cellular level, and that's the carbon 60 molecule. And it's basically 60 carbon atoms shaped like a little soccer ball, and it's kind of unique in nature in that its magic is that it kind of pulls hydrogen ions from the surrounding environment. Let me give you kind of a history of it. I don't know if some of you older people might recognize the guy on the right, and that's Buckminsterfullerene. And he was that polymath from the 60s and 70s. And the reason the actual scientific name for carbon 60 is Buckminsterfullerene, because it kind of resembles some of the geodesic domes he made. But actually in the 70s, he predicted this molecule would be discovered. But not only that, it would have significant health benefits.
What country is he from?
He was American.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was American, and I think he hung out in Britain too, to a certain extent. But it was decades. This was decades before the health benefits of C60 were discovered, and even before C60 itself was discovered. And if we look at the three guys down the side, they got the Nobel Prize: Harry Kroto, Richard Smalley, and Robert Curl. And they discovered C60 in 1985. It actually solved this long-standing mystery in astronomy, because C60 is actually made in the atmospheres of giant red stars. And so it's found between the stars, and it absorbs stuff in the infrared bands. And that's called the DIBs, diffuse interstellar bands. And it was a mystery of what this molecule was. And Harry Kroto figured out what it was. But those guys, they got together and they finally solved it. But they got a Nobel Prize in chemistry because like a totally unique molecule, right? Nothing like this had been seen in chemistry before. So that happened in 1996. But it wasn't until the early 2000s that C60 became available for scientific study. Now, my study, I mentioned before, I did it for radiation, because I was working in the fusion reactor because, Chernobyl had happened and
Yeah.
Fukushima, and we're looking for an alternative to, like, nuclear reactors, fission reactors breaking
And
down.
by
That's
the
when
way, Fukushima, sorry to interrupt, but that, once radiation is released, it doesn't just stop. It never stops. It has
no,
a
it's
half-life. So the entire world is being affected by Fukushima, correct? Even
and it's
now.
still being affected. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
some of the half-life of stuff given out by Fukushima are things like strontium 90 and cesium 137. They're in the fallout, and that stuff has a half-life of 30 years, right?
Yeah.
And usually you have to take 7 half-lives before it drops to not significant levels. So 7 times that's 210 years. Okay, it's going to be around for a while. So
Right.
yeah, that stuff never goes away. And so I was working on that's why I learned the fusion reactor project, and I discovered the benefits of C60, because fission is when things break apart. That's that uranium. They break down uranium and plutonium, and it makes all these little nasties that take for centuries and centuries to go away, sometimes thousands of years. Whereas fusion is when you add things together, like you add hydrogen, just like what the sun does. They get hydrogen, turn it into helium, right? MOXY fusion, we put hydrogen with oxygen, it makes fluoride 18, turns into oxygen 18, and produces a little bit of energy. And you can boil water with it and make electricity. That's basically
Can I ask kind of just a question out of curiosity? I've never understood, like, okay, I understand the concept of fusion, but how do you actually isolate these microscopic particles you can't even see and like put them together?
Oh, well, for what it is, oxygen is obviously in the atmosphere, but
Right.
deuterium is in water. It's like see, there's a thing called isotopes, and so the most hydrogen is just a proton, but a certain number of them have a neutron attached to it. 1 out of every 7,000 hydrogen atoms is a deuterium with an extra neutron, and they actually use electrolysis. So they put electrolysis in there, and the hydrogen and oxygen come off of the water, but the deuterium preferentially stays away. So if you basically hydrolyze 7,000 gallons of water, the last gallon you get will be deuterium water or heavy water.
Huh.
And that's the simple way that they do it. So so that's how we get it. Except it's about, I don't know what it was, ridiculous amounts. It's expensive. Deuterium.
And then how does that create energy from that?
What you do is you put it together. Is when you squeeze stuff together up all the way up to iron, it releases a little binding energy comes out, and that gives energy. And then above iron, it takes energy. So like in stars, take hydrogen, turn it into helium, that releases energy. That's what's running our star. And eventually our star is going to run out of hydrogen, and it'll turn it into helium. It'll take the helium that it has also left as helium and turn that into carbon. And then eventually it'll puff up out to it'll turn into a giant red star. And if it's a bigger star, it blows up in a supernova. Our star is just going to puff up into a big giant red star, probably out beyond the orbit of the Earth. So everything will be gone.
Not anytime soon, right?
No, don't 4 billion years.
I got plans this week.
Yeah, 4 billion years from now. So
Okay.
don't worry about it. Not a problem. And then that's the C60 story. It fixed my macular degeneration. It fixed Gary Rodriguez, my electrical engineer's wet macular degeneration, which was much worse than mine. And then I started figured out how to make formulations for friends and family. And so I started giving it, and they had good things. And then I shared it with my alternative healthcare professionals, and they had great results. They shared it with their patients, and they had great results. And then somebody mentioned it on the internet. One of those internet influencers was using my product, and then things kind of blew up. And now there's C60. People talk about it everywhere. So, maybe not that much. It's still, a lot of people still don't know about it.
How long have you been actually, publicly producing it?
The company's been around since 2016.
Okay.
And the first studies, like the famous study, I'll tell you. Okay, let's go back to the story of C60. Okay, obviously they discovered it in 1985. They got a Nobel Prize in 1996. It was really hard to make, right? It wasn't until the early 2000s that they could make it. And then one of the first studies was the Bachelor study. And they gave it to, here's this weird molecule found in outer space. It's also found like in the burnt wick of your candle too. So it's not like
really,
yeah, about 0.25%.
Because it produces carbon.
Yeah, 0.25% of the burnt wick of your candle is C60. But you'd have to eat
Of course, don't, for people out there, if you're trying to save a buck, don't just try to lick the burnt wick of your candle, right?
Yeah, that would take a lot of burnt wicks of candles to get there. So yeah, and so they did studies, and the famous Bachelor study basically doubled the lifespan of test animals.
Right, I remember that one. Yeah.
And then there was another one. Of course, that took like 5.5 years. It was actually the last few rats had a terrible, because all the control rats died, and then the C60 rats were still there. They stopped giving them C60, but they
lived too long, right?
Yeah, and then the last few rats had a terrible accident, so they could publish, the study. But they also did another study in the meantime. Other people did a study with mice who have a much shorter lifespan, and they found that C60 completely prevented the cognitive decline in mice and extended their lifespan. And then I told you about the radiation stories. They did things like they gave rabbits arthritis, and again, then they injected C60, and they found that not only did it get rid of the inflammation from arthritis, but it stimulated stem cells growth and actually rebuilt the cartilage growth and helped rebuild the joint. And so then there's I might as well talk about some of the things. The first study of C60, by the way, was in Japan. They actually put it in a face cream, and they found that C60 applied topically to your face significantly reduced the wrinkles and fine lines in Japanese women. And then another one was when they rubbed it topically on the hair, and they found that C60 increased hair growth. And in cases where people had hair loss, it would bring back the hair.
Wow.
The hair loss, but it doesn't work for male pattern baldness. For you guys, that's a genetic condition. So it'll slow down hair loss for that condition, but it won't bring it back. You have to get like copper peptides to do that. But for other things, where people have hormone issues or other health problems, C60 is incredibly great at bringing back the hair. But not so much for men's hair pattern baldness. Oh, then they did some others. They did a thing where they had nerve cells in like a test tube that's in vitro, and they gave some to C60. They gave the controls don't get any. They hit them with a neurotoxin. The C60, the nerve cells with C60, they weren't affected. The controls got wiped out. They did the same with UV radiation. They had human skin cells in a test tube, and they hit them with they gave one C60, the other didn't. They hit them with a big dose of UV. The skin cells that had C60 resisted UV damage, whereas the controls got that. And in fact, one of the things, we used to be able to post like animal studies too on our website, but some 3-letter agencies said no. So a bunch of C60 companies got together, and we actually have a website. We actually sponsor a website called whatis60.org.
Okay. And I'll link that in the description box too for people to see.
You can go there, and it's got all the human studies, but it also has all the animal studies, and it has like a little synopsis at the end of them. And so you can see, because one of the things I'll probably talk about later too is the only type of C60 that works is individually dissolved molecules of C60.
Okay.
Particles of C60 do not work. And
what's an example of a particle of C? Is that like you're talking about like on the wick of a candle?
Yeah, well, it'd be like a particle. Usually particles like thousands or millions of C60 molecules in a little crystal. It's the same thing like silica. Dissolved silica is really important for health, for good teeth and bones and all that. But glass has silica, and if I ground glass up into a little bunch of little tiny particles and fed it to you, have negative effects. And
it's like taking bone broth, making your bone broth, for example, versus eating glass.
Yeah.
Right?
So exactly. So you got to have to make sure it's dissolved C60, because the other stuff doesn't work. So why do people take C60? I guess we'll go over the slide here. Okay, it's a Nobel Prize winning. It's a free radical sponge, so it'll get rid of inflammation. And like people can see it, like if you got a mosquito bite, rub a little C60 on it, within like 20 minutes, the itching stops. Or if you get sunburn and it's red, rub some C60 on it, and the pain goes away pretty quickly, and you heal up without, getting scarring or, shedding of your skin.
Cool.
And part of that has to do with it lifting the and it's not a magic pill. C60 doesn't cure or prevent any disease. What it does, it lifts the oxidative burden that your cells are under, so the cells can naturally let your own cells do the job, because that's really the only thing that ever heals you is your own cells. Medicine does not heal. It just allows your cells to heal. And also one of the key things I'll talk more about is optimizes mitochondria function. And that's one of the things you can't do, because mitochondria need SOD catalase to really run properly. And as we get older, that drops. And for some people, it drops faster than others. And there's really been before C60 being a SOD mimic, there was nothing you could do. Basically, there are some precursors you give, but there's no way to supplement for SOD, and there still isn't. But since C60 is a mimic of SOD, you can take C60, and that does amazing restoration of mitochondria function. And since mitochondria function make the energy molecule of your cell, it's really important that's really important. And then, which is what happens when your mitochondria are functioning? They're making ATP, and they also make pregnenolone, the precursor molecule for all the hormones.
Mm-hmm.
And they also make precursors for like a lot of RNA and DNA synthesis, right? So mitochondria function is really important. So when you get good mitochondria function, you get these results. It increases energy, mental clarity, stamina, promotes the balanced immune response. They saw that with the mast cells, supports athletic performance and recovery. C60 is the only antioxidant you can take which can actually increase athletic performance. They've done big studies with vitamin C, vitamin D, E. They don't increase athletic performance.
Now, wasn't there something about some measure of C60 being something like 200 times more powerful per gram or something than?
Oh yeah,
than
and that's
vitamin
part
C?
of that. I'll get to it because when I get to the chemistry, because C60 has the ability to reset itself again and again, and we'll probably get a little bit more on that here in a bit. And that supports athletic performance and recovery. And that's one of the things. C60 is, by the way, is not banned by any sports organization. And we actually have a lot of people. Yeah, we have people that were like mid-pack in their sports pursuit, became national champions in their field using C60.
Wow.
So, if you're an athlete, or you go down to the gym and compete with your friends. And also things it does helps with mild memory loss and associated with aging. Did that in their animal studies too. Promotes skin vitality and hair growth, and also lessens the appearance of lines and wrinkles when applied topically. That's that Japanese study. And what C60, the things that C60 does the best in are cell types that have a lot of mitochondria. And the number one cell type that has a lot of mitochondria in your body is the brain cells. They're like 2% your body mass. They use 20% your body's energy, right? They are just packed with mitochondria. And the retinas, which is macular degeneration, the retina is actually part of the brain. It's nerve cells. That's why C60 work there. Also, the endocrine, the cells, the endocrine system, they churn out all those hormones. They're full of mitochondria. And of course, the muscle cells, especially the heart cells. And the epithelia cells, they line your blood vessels, contract and stuff. They're just packed with mitochondria, and all of those cell types do really great with it. And here's the thing where it's several hundred times more conventional than antioxidants like vitamin C, which is a lot of orange juice. And kind of, if you look at the molecule behind me on the screen, C60 is unique. Most molecules, like C60 likes to have a positive charge, right? And oxidative radicals like superoxide and the hydroxyl ion, they have a negative charge. So they're attracted to the C60 molecule. And now most molecules get a positive charge by giving an electron up to the environment, whereas C60 actually pulls hydrogen ions, which are naturally produced naturally in the water that your body's part of. They spontaneously. Hydroxyl ions and hydrogen ions pop all the time. C60 pulls those hydrogen ions from the environment and stores it in its cage-like structure, and then uses those to neutralize the oxidative radicals of superoxide and the hydroxyl ion. And basically, it just takes the electron from the superoxide, turns it back into a regular oxygen, which goes back to do what oxygen does in your body. And then it takes that electron, transfers it to a hydrogen ion, which turns it into hydrogen gas, which is also an antioxidant and a signaling molecule. And then for the hydroxyl ion is just a water molecule missing a proton. So C60 just takes one of those hydrogen ions, which is a proton, and gives it to the hydroxyl ion, turns it back into water. And then so C60 can reset itself again and again and again and again and again. And that's how it ends up being characterized as several hundred times more powerful than conventional antioxidants, because like vitamin C or vitamin D or vitamin E, right? When they combine with an oxidative radical, they kind of stick to it, right? Then the body has to take some enzymes and some ATP and reset that vitamin. But C60 does it all on its own by itself, and that's the secret of it. And it's the C60 can reset itself, and the limitations of the other ones. And C60 is also actively uptaken by the mitochondria. Vitamin D and vitamin E, C aren't taken up by the mitochondria, but the mitochondria pull it in through endocytosis. C60 passes the gut barrier into the blood, passes the blood barrier into the brain, and then the cells use endocytosis to pull the C60 inside, and then the mitochondria use endocytosis to pull the C60 inside. And the key thing about C60 is it doesn't interfere with the body's signaling molecules, unlike other antioxidants like vitamin C or vitamin E.
Can you explain what a signaling molecule is?
Oh yeah, well, a signaling molecule is basically it tells your cells what to do. So some cells will produce or some endocrine system will produce a molecule like nitrous oxide, right? So nitrous oxide is produced, and that tells your capillaries to contract or dilate depending on the level. And so obviously, so you get by I guess opening your capillaries up, it lowers your blood pressure. Whereas for guys, contracting some of the capillaries, it's really important for male performance.
Yeah, sure.
Nitrogen oxide. So it's just like a signaling molecule. And hydrogen peroxide does the same things. It'll tell the cell, oh, this is what you need to do. And then there's some based around sulfur and iron and zinc. And it's just one of the ways the body signals. It's the hormones are one type of signaling molecule. Obviously, androgens, testosterone, estrogen,
makes sense.
T3 and T4. Well, oxidative radicals are used, but they're in a more general sense, because you can just spray a bunch of nitrous oxide out there and all your capillaries contract or expand, right? Depending on what the system. So it's more of a broad, general, and easy to make thing, and than hormones. And so the C60.
So vitamin C isn't. I mean, it's not bad to take.
No, vitamin C is critical to you,
right.
but it just won't do. And it's also a building block. Vitamin D and vitamin C, like vitamin D does something like 500 biological functions in your body, right? And it's usually used as a building block. Sometimes it's antioxidant, but it's a building block. Vitamin C is also a building block in your body. So, and the same with vitamin E. So they have their antioxidants and building blocks. So don't stop taking them. You still need them. They're very important. But you can take too much. And that's the problem. If you take too much vitamin C, you get kidney stones, right? That's another thing of too much vitamin C. Or too much vitamin E, you can have other problems. And because they're interfering with the signaling molecules in your body, and you don't want that. And here's what I was talking about before, where the C60 uses those hydrogen ions from the inside, and it just either pulls the electron off and gives it to the hydrogen ion, or contributes it, and that just makes it there. And so the thing I mentioned before, C60 can reset itself again and again and again. It enters the mitochondria and where free radicals hang out. You need it there. You need it in the mitochondria. You need it inside your cells to protect the DNA, the cell walls, the proteins. And then the toxicity has no toxicity in other levels. So I told you about this great thing and this great that. And so finally they decided, well, at what level does C60 have toxicity? So they gave rats 1 gram per kilogram of body weight of C60. And that's 10,000 times the health beneficial dose, which is usually 0.1 milligrams per kilogram, a pretty low amount. And even at that insane level, C60 had no toxicity. So because it doesn't interfere with the body's signaling molecules like other antioxidants. So at some point, obviously, if you take more than a certain amount, you're not getting any more benefit from it. Right. But it doesn't have any toxicity, and it doesn't hang out in the body. It just kind of washes out after a while. And
that's amazing to know for people. You know, because a lot of times people have, a bit of fear around something they don't understand, around something that's not really touted by the conventional medical community, right? But to know that it has absolutely no toxicity at any level.
Yeah, it's actually, C60 is like a cousin of diamond. It's, because they're both allotropes of carbon, so it only reacts with the highest energy oxidative radicals and pretty much nothing else. It doesn't act with like minerals or supplements or pharmaceuticals or, anything. Just those 2 oxidative radicals. Anything else it just doesn't react with. So it doesn't make
no interactions with any supplement, any herb, homeopathy, prescription drug. Right.
And so it doesn't make really permanent chemical bonds. So it kind of just diffuses out of the body, goes out through the urine, through the nephrons, and then also goes out through the liver and in the gall, or through the liver, through the gallbladder. So if you're missing a gallbladder, your C60 is still going out, and then it just goes out the backside. So you have to do supplement, but because it takes 4 to 10 days to do that job, if you miss a day taking C60, it's not a big deal, right? You just make it up the next day. And here are some of our supplement people that took it, that did it, anywhere advertising stuff. And so how much C60 do you take? Well, when you want to start off, we probably want to take like half a teaspoon just to start out if you've never taken it before. And then for people here, we're nice on this thing. Like if you're between 100 and 160, it's 1 teaspoon. So if you're like 160 to 220, it'd be 2 teaspoons. This is if you're young and healthy, right? If you're, let's say, in you're 25 to like, let's say 40 something, 45, that's what it is. As you get older, you need to take more, and that's our performance dose. Actually, we don't want to say geezer dose, but that's really what it is. So if you get older, you probably need to take more. So it's two teaspoons or maybe a tablespoon. If you're in your 60s, definitely in your 70s, you need to take more. And you're taking what, 2 or 3 a day?
Yeah, I take 2 tablespoons a day. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you're right there.
Six teaspoons a day. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's actually probably where you need to be.
Yeah.
And so and remember, if you take more, it's you're not going to overdose or have any negative amounts.
Right.
What you do, it does kind of ramp you up in the morning. A lot of people use it in their coffee. So you don't want to take it late.
Yeah, it's good to take it earlier in the day if possible. Yeah.
Yeah. Around, breakfast or noonish. And
yeah.
so that's kind of what it is. And
I will say I have taken it at night when I forgot, and I don't know, I'm a good sleeper anyways. But yeah, I try to take it in the middle of the day.
Yeah, there are people that can take coffee right after dinner, right?
Right.
If you're one of those people, C60 isn't going to cause you a problem.
I am. I could drink a green tea or coffee at night and still
okay.
sleep.
Well, then you're fine. Yeah, that's just for some people like me. If I take coffee after like 1 o'clock or 12, it's going to be a problem for me later in the day. So I just, I do a coffee in the morning. One of the things that you want to look for in a C60 product, and when the C60 market was small, before people all went crazy with it, it was a good product. Everybody, all the people that made it, made a good product because they use it for their friends and family, right? Then it became popular. And then we have all these fly-by-nighters come in, and they're selling, products with no C60, products with low C60, products of low quality C60. And so here's a few rules that you probably want to look for when you're taking C60. And what you're looking for is you want to look for 99.99 or 98%, 99.98% pure C60, because that has to do something with its purification method. That's the purest you can get on the market. And it's also because it's associated with sublimation. And if you remember from high school chemistry class, sublimation is the cousin of evaporation. It's when a solid turns into a gas, then turns back into a solid. It's like distillation, how they make alcohol stuff. So it's the same sort of thing. And so you put it in the sublimator, the C60 turns in at 400 degrees Celsius, turns into a gas, floats to the other side of the sublimator where it condenses back into a solid. And that's how you get 99.99% pure.
So it takes some equipment and a lab and a lot to make this,
Yeah, C60 actually costs, high purity C60 costs more by weight than gold.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, it's just the whole way of building it and then purifying it. Purifying is the biggest part of it. And so that's why you want sublimated, because there's a lot of C60 producers out there that use solvent-produced C60, and they use methylbenzene. And methylbenzene is a known carcinogen.
Right.
And even if you purify it really good, it's still kind of, you don't want to be taking that in your body. And it's also known as toluene. And so you want to look for sublimated C60. And we're not the only producer of C60 products that use sublimated C60 out there. So, but these are just things you need to look for in a good C60 producer, because we like to think we're the best, and perhaps we are the best. I would certainly think so.
I would agree.
And so, but we still, there still doesn't mean that there's good people out there. But the problem is we have all these fly-by-nighters, and one of the things I mentioned before, only dissolved C60 has benefit, right? So they have these people that are talking about, oh, we have C60 in water. What they do is they have particles of C60 suspended in water, and particles of C60 have no health benefit and actually can be inflammatory. And that's why I go onto that website, whatisc60.org. You can see the science papers, because there's science papers that show C60 causes problems, but it's always particles of C60.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Not the dissolved C60. Yeah. And it's just like I told you, ground up glass shards, not good for you. Dissolved silica, good for you.
How are these people like getting or producing, particle C60?
Oh, no, that's how it actually produces. When you get C60 from the laboratory, we are just producing a sublimation in the laboratory, scientific laboratory. It comes as little tiny crystals. That's how it kind of condenses on the sublimator thing. And then we have to dissolve that C60. Usually you have to spin it.
Oh, okay.
And then that C60 crystals dissolve into the oil. It takes a long
Ah,
time.
I understand. Okay.
And then once they're dissolved, it changes color. That's how you get the purple color of the oil. Or if it's in tan or the tan of avocado or olive oil, it's kind of an amber. And so that's the thing. So you want 99.9% pure. You want sublimated. Look for sublimated. If it's oven baked or ESS or anything else supercharged, it's solvent-based C60. It's not what you want. And then there's the healthier carrier oils. And there's we picked like the Goldilocks of oils. There's some oils you shouldn't be taking anyway, like canola oil or soybean or safflower oil, or sunflower oil. These are really high in omega-6, and they're inflammatory for us. They're great for birds, not good for people. And so you don't want to be even taking those oils anyway for any reason. So we don't put C60 in those. And then there's really great oils that are healthy for you, like fish oil and flaxseed oil and hemp seed oil. They're really high in omega-3s, and they're great for you. The only problem is they go rancid really quickly. So if you're like, for instance, if you're ever buying a fish oil or flaxseed oil or hemp seed oil, buy it out of the refrigerated section of your health food store. If you buy it off the shelf, you don't know how long that fish oil has been on the shelf. Chances are it's gone rancid, and that rancid oil is bad for you. So we picked like the Goldilocks of oils. We picked, of course, we have this traditional one, which is olive oil. It's all organic, 100% organic olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. And we all know about olive oil. It's Mediterranean diet. People have been using it for thousands and thousands of years. So that's good. But one of the things about olive oil, extra virgin, because when I first got it for the MOXY fusion reactor project, if I take too much olive oil, it'll kind of go right through me because I have a sensitive digestive system. So I started making it an avocado oil, which is way more digestible.
Yeah, that's what I like.
Yeah,
that's
and so that's the one I made it for. And then I also made it in MCT coconut oil. Right. That was my friend Gary Rodriguez, because he had type 2 diabetes. And one of the things that MCT stands for medium chain triglycerides, and that basically your liver can turn medium chain triglycerides into ketones, which your body can use as flex fuel. So like if your body has glucose resistance or can't get the glucose in, the cells can pull pull the ketones right out of your bloodstream and use them as flex fuel. So even if you're not using C60 in MCT oil, if you have a glucose processing issue, using MCT oil is really important so that your cells can get the energy so they don't have that glucose crash. It's really a key thing. And so that's why we have that. And also now I don't have a sample for you, but you go to the website. We now have gummies.
Right.
Gummies, and we actually use whole coconut oil in that.
Nice.
So it's a whole coconut oil, and it's in tart.
They're healthy gummies.
Yeah, you get one gummy provides all the C60. It's like 1 teaspoon of like avocado olive oil. Yeah, the MCT oil holds a little less C60 than the olive oil or the coconut or the olive oil or the avocado oil, because they're shorter chain triglycerides, so they can hold less C60. But you just take a little bit more. But we did that for people with glucose processing issues, because there's really no substitute for MCT. And so we picked that, and so it's olive oil, 100% organic olive oil, organic avocado, and organic MCT oil. So that's just kind of the things you want to look for in a C60 product. Oh, and here's the thing I mentioned before.
Yep.
The human and the animal studies. And there's a few hit pieces on by Big Pharma. You go to whatisc60.org. But Big Pharma can't do too much to us anymore, because if a lot of people, if you look at your medicines, it says HCl on it. That stands for hydrochloric acid, and they attach it to that medicine so it'll pass through your digestive system, your stomach primarily, which makes the hydrochloric acid, which breaks things down. And so they've actually found that they can attach a lot of pharmaceuticals to C60, and C60 kind of works like HCl. So the pharmaceutical companies have tens of millions of dollars in patents on using C60 with pharmaceuticals. So they can't really come out against pristine C60. C60 that is made in nature, which we also make in a lab, so it's 99.99% pure, can't be patented. It's part of nature, right?
Right.
You can't patent like glucose. You can't patent sunlight. You can't patent, vitamin C, because it's part of nature. The same way with C60. And so they can't really come after C60 too much, because then they lose their money on their patents. But they have done some hit pieces here and there. So that's just something to be aware of. But the animal studies, the human studies are just amazing. There's just so many of them that
I'm linking that in the description box too. And when you say in nature, just to clarify, it's really only found in space, right?
No, it's like found in the it's found in like the lightning strikes a tree, you'll find a little
Okay.
bit of C60. When meteoritic impacts hit the Earth, they create C60. In fact, one of the things they found is if it was a totally really cold, C60 is hydrophobic. It means it repels from water, so it floats, but it's lipophilic. That means it attracts fats and amino acids. And so there was actually on the early Earth geologic deposits of C60 amino acids and natural fats and hydrogen gas, because C60 is also a hydrogen gas sponge. And also it's a radiation protectant. The early Earth was 50 times more radioactive than it is today. And if you were in a really cold environment, C60 could fit into the groove of the RNA molecule or the side groove of the DNA molecule if it's really cold. And they think that C60 might have been the original scaffolding for RNA and DNA chemistry, and maybe the original antioxidant of life, because it has no toxicity at any level. And that hasn't been confirmed yet, but there's a supporting evidence for that C60. That's why the cells know how to use C60. They just pull it in, and they take it to the mitochondria use it, and it's like they know how to use it because. And so today, like for when you're dealing with superoxide, the most damaging oxidative radical, C60 can do the job all by itself, or C60 can do the job for the hydroxyl ion. Now we have to use SOD and catalase to do the same job C60 does. And so that's some of the supporting evidence why C60 was one of the original antioxidant of life, and why
I'd love to read like a paper on that. I don't know
we
if
haven't
there's
done a paper yet. We put it out there. People are looking into it. And someday, hopefully, people will do that experiment. But
and people that are watching my channel are really into futuristic stuff and the future of alternative medicine, and I just have a feeling that we're just the really early adopters.
Well, I would really like
not
to
just
see
C60, but so much amazing stuff right now. But like 10, 20 years from now, I think it's going to be normal that everyone takes C60.
Yeah, because you've seen those experiments where they put like the atmosphere of the early Earth, they run like electrical discharges through it. And after a while, a bunch of amino acids start appearing and stuff.
Yeah.
Basic stuff. I was wondering if you put some C60 in there first and then do that, are we going to start getting RNA molecules? So it's something, it would be a good thing to test out, but nobody.
That would be a great paper. Yeah, for sure. I love the scientific deep dive that you just took us on. I know for some people, a lot of people watching, a lot of what you're saying is going to go a little bit over their head. Of course, I'd recommend watching it again and taking notes if you'd like. It really was kind of a chemistry class that you put us through, so I really appreciate that. But just to distill it down to the practicality of things, C60 is going to help your body to scavenge the free radicals, to reduce the oxidative stress. The oxidative stress is underpinning inflammation, which is really the underpinnings of so much disease, if not potentially almost all disease that we experience as humans and animals experience as well, correct?
Yeah, it's degenerative diseases. Yeah,
right.
Because the allopathic medicine, it's great. If you're cut, burnt, or poisoned, go to the doctor, right? Go to the hospital, get that fixed. But a lot of the degenerative diseases like arthritis, they really don't have good methods for it. And C60, that's where C60 comes in, because it can reduce the oxidative burden, the inflammation goes away, the body can heal itself. And so many conditions like that have improved so much from it. And so that's kind of one of the things, we look for macular degeneration and animal studies and people, a lot of anecdotal people talk, how their arthritis goes down, way down, MS symptoms go down, a lot of these things go down. But remember, C60 is not that magic molecule. It's not the super pill. You've got to do the nutrition, because C60 just makes everything work better. You've got to have the inputs to do that. Yeah. You've got to have the exercise that you need to keep yourself healthy. You've got to get the sleep that you need. You've got to get, you've got to get, staying out of stressful situations, like not just, physical ones, but, and personal relationship ones, but, like turning off that television. Believe me, if you're not watching the fear porn on the evening news, it can do wonders for improving your overall mental perception.
Agreed. Now, does C60 do anything for removing chemicals in the body?
Yes, well, I actually did some of that. Well, it doesn't remove chemicals, but it can help in the breakdown. Because one of the things, like for instance, in the test tube, they found C60 broke down graphite oxide to carbon dioxide and water, just like a catalytic wet, just like that, really rapidly. And then also they did, one of the studies they did with C60 is they gave, there's a chemical called carbon tetrachloride. It's a really nasty chemical and damages the liver. And they gave one where they, run one rats, and as it breaks down, as a lot of these chemicals break down, pesticides, herbicides, carbon tetrachloride, other toxic, they actually produce powerful oxidative radicals like superoxides, hydroxyl ions, and that's what actually causes the damage, not the chemical itself. As it breaks down, it's throwing off all these, oxidative, hot species. And so C60 neutralized that. So they had one set of rats got C60, the other didn't. They gave them a dose of carbon tetrachloride. The C60 rats' livers were fine. The ones that the control rats just totally torn up. So we see that, and also,
go ahead.
Yeah, C60 also has some. It's in the test tube. It's found it turned mercury hydroxide, which is a biologically active form of mercury, into mercury oxide, which is not biologically active, and the body can pull itself out. And a lot of people that take C60, if they've got a lot of mouth metals, the mercury and fillings, they'll notice like the first 3 or 4 days, they'll get a metallic taste in their mouth. Because C60 it's a bit bigger than the mercury atom, but it has kind of like the same +2 charge in a sense. And so it tends to dislodge mercury, because you'll have mercury in micrograms. You're taking C60 in milligrams, so it tends to dislodge the mercury, tantalum, and other like the +2 types from wherever they're hiding, and then it prevents them from resettling, so your body can actually grab them and get them out of it, So because people that take C60 for a long time have really incredibly low metal levels. We're not sure totally sure about aluminum, but it may have some benefits in getting rid of aluminum as well.
Fascinating. Now, I am an animal lover, always have been, always will be. I make sure my animals get C60, and I recommend the people I talk to also, give it to their animals. Can you talk a little bit about C60 for pets?
Oh yeah, C60 for pets is fantastic. We've had a lot of like old pets that they have to put them down. They give them C60, and the next thing you know, they're up and running, and they get several more years, of happiness with your pet. And like like a big German Shepherd, old German Shepherd, right? You might be doing a tablespoon of C60, whereas a little bitty dog, foo-foo dog, you might have to do like half a teaspoon or a quarter of a teaspoon. You don't have to worry about that. And usually it's like, we'd recommend, because MCT coconuts in the grass family, so it can maybe have the dog go right through the dog heat. So we recommend like avocado oil or olive oil, and you can just put it in like the dry dog food, or put it in with the wet dog food. They won't even notice.
One of my dogs, the little one, he doesn't like the taste, and we gotta trick him, mix it in peanut butter, usually works. My other dog, he loves C60. He gets excited, he jumps off the couch, and he licks it up right out of the spoon.
It depends on the dog.
Some of them like it.
It's a personal taste thing.
Where can people find the recommended dosages for animals?
We don't really have it. It's just kind of guesstimate, because if a 100-pound person does a teaspoon, you just kind of back off and from that, and just kind of do a guesstimate of it. So you're looking like part of a dropper, like probably a quarter of a teaspoon for a small animal. And usually these animals are older, so it's not really a big problem. Whereas a big German Shepherd, they found really about a tablespoon a day for an old German Shepherd. So it's somewhere in there. But C60 has no toxicity in the level.
So if they take too much, it's not going to be a problem.
They might get a little hyper right after they take them, but other than that,
or they might get diarrhea. Could they get diarrhea from too much oil?
Yeah, that's why you mix it with the food, so that doesn't happen.
Right.
Another thing too is it takes a while. You're not going to notice this immediately. And that's why, we recommend people get a bottle like an 8 ounce or 4 ounce and work it, take it for a month, right? Work it up to a teaspoon, or if you're older, work it up to a tablespoon, take it for a month. Like the first couple of weeks, you'll probably notice the more energy, better mental clarity. You just, brain fog kind of goes away. But as time goes by, there's a lot of other things, like as your body starts repairing itself, it takes a while for the gut to heal. So, and because it stimulates stem cell production, but it doesn't happen overnight. So this happens over things. There's some counterindications I need to talk about. One of the things is if you're on a blood thinner, you need to consult with your physician before taking C60, because one of the things C60 does, it restarts the hormone glands in your body. So because when you once the mitochondria get restarted, they make pregnenolone, the precursor molecule for the hormone. So like people will notice they'll get better sleep. They'll get more human growth hormone, hypothalamus, pituitary complex. You know, they get more T4. We've had people reduce or get rid of their T3, T4 levels. So you need more testing. But one of the things is it also starts up is mineral corticoid production in the adrenal glands. So, and mineral corticoids are what controls, a big part of what controls the thickness of the blood. So the underlying cause of your blood thickness could go away. And if you're taking a blood thinner, now your blood's too thin. And it does, to a certain extent, it does that with hormone replacement therapy. Like there's a case, we get this all the time. We got a 70-year-old guy, right? He goes into his doctor, his testosterone's 350. Doctor gives him creams, he's up to like low 700s. He starts taking C60, a couple months later, goes to his doctor. His testosterone level is 1200. So the doctor backs him off. That's another side effect. Increase in libido is it's another big side effect of C60. So be prepared for that.
Not a bad thing for most
women
people.
in that case.
Wonderful. And actually, there's something on your website called C60 Sexy. That,
yes, that's one of our things. Yeah, we have C60 Sexy and edible massage oil. We have the new gummies, you know, which are really tasty. It's kind of hard just to eat one, but you know, you could eat for two or three of them will equal a tablespoon.
Okay.
So that's acceptable. And then we have, of course, an avocado, olive, and MCT coconut oil.
Now, I have a lot of parents watching. Is C60 appropriate for children, and is it appropriate for pregnant women?
We do not recommend it for pregnant women because there's no studies on that. And it's better just to err on the side of caution. Now, another thing, also because it's not an FDA-approved thing, we can't say anything for children. That would be an adult choice, their parent or guardian. Now, we've had parents who worked with their kids, had great work with autism. And we also work with, like we have adult Asperger syndrome people. And they say it's just amazing because like for the first time in their life, they felt normal. Their social anxiety went away.
Wow.
So a lot of the adult autism and Asperger's people we work with, and they found great benefit to it. We can't really recommend it for children and stuff. I mean, but one of the things is like one of our Sierra, she's like our marketing person, all things marketing. Her son takes C60 because, you know, she's in the company, and he broke like the school record for benching, you know, where you just hold yourself 11 minutes, 11 and something minutes.
Oh my God.
I couldn't do 11 minutes of benching.
Unbelievable.
Like three, I'd give up after 3. So they've had, really big significant increases in athletic performance with C60.
Great. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Ken, for this wonderful deep dive into C60. So again, there is a link in my description box below for 10% off, a coupon code for 10% off your C60 order. You can use the coupon code as many times as you want. Get some for yourself, get some for friends and family. It's the holiday season. What a great gift rather than getting some bullshit thing from Amazon that someone's going to throw away after the new year. Get them something to restore their health, to improve their athletic performance. So you can, again, get that coupon code below. Thank you so much again, Ken. It was really wonderful, and I'm sure we'll have more talks in the future.
Oh, great talking to you.
Namaste.